Hey YouTube, I'm Rocket, and this is part 4 of my Nest HackTheBox write-up. In the previous video, we managed to log in as a C. Smith user and get his user file. What I didn't do is recursively download all of his content, so let's just do that right now. So, back down here, I am in the SMB as a temp user. So I'm going to create a new directory called c.smith. And the reason why I'm doing this is to stay organized. I explained why in, I believe, the first video of the series. So let's go to C. Smith, and then we're going to log in with SMB client with its credentials. So let's just go SMB client -u. Actually, I had the command up here. Might as well just copy that. It's way faster. We'll take that. Paste this. Do an ls, and we're going to try to recursively get all the contents. So, as always, recurse on prompt off and mget star. So we'll download all the files that belong to C. Smith, preserving directory structure. Let's get out of here. And yeah, let's just do find.type f to find all files. And yeah, the debug mode password looks pretty interesting. I like passwords, especially when I'm doing CTFs. So let's take a look at this. To my disappointment, it is empty. Okay. Well, we shouldn't just stop here because it's empty, but we'll take a look at this after we take a look at this this file right here. So hqconfig backup.xml. What's this? Make sure to put quotes because there is a space between HQK and reporting. And this gives us a little bit more information and context for where that service on port 4386 is running on. In one of the previous videos, when we were able to access the HQK service with Netcat, we did have the ability to traverse directories and list contents, though we couldn't read them or write to them for that matter. But this is interesting to let us know kind of where the service might be running relative to. So let's go back and check out this debug mode password. The other thing that we could look up is this other file here, hqk ldap.exe. However, it is an executable. I don't see any source code that comes with it. We can run a file on it just to kind of fingerprint what it is and if it actually is an executable file. And it is another .NET assembly, so it's probably another Visual Basic file, but it's compiled this time, so we will have to reverse engineer this if we want to know what it does. But before we go and reverse engineer this, I think we should take a look at this file right here, because it says debug mode password, but it shouldn't be, it's empty, right? But I think in the first video, I showed you how to look for alternate data streams in files that look suspicious. Files that are empty, but you ask yourself, are they really empty? So yeah, let's go back to our SMB client session up here. Do an ls. Go to HQK reporting. And with SMB client, you can run the allinfo command to find all data streams available in a Windows file. And it looks here that the file does not lie. It looks like it is actually giving us a password. The question is, how do we actually get this password? Well, we can do that by saying something like get, and then we'll pass the file name. So we call it debug mode password. Make sure to quote it because there are spaces here. And then separate by a colon. Specify the data stream, which is password. And let's just get the data as well. Data. So it looked like that worked. We downloaded it at 0.1 kilobytes per second. Let's check it out. Let's exit. Just debug mode password. And that looks like a password to me. So let's take that. Let's dump it in our notes. So we'll just call this HQK debug mode. I'll just dump this password right here. And now, let's go interact with that service. now that we have a password. And running the debug command on that service should grant us access to more commands. All right, so let's do rl wrap. Yep, rl wrap ncat -c to terminate our line feeds with a carriage return as well. This way the HQK service will understand the commands that we send to it. And let's just go list to find which commands we can run. Sorry, I meant help. So let's go debug, paste that password, and we have debug mode enabled. All right, let's use the help command to view additional commands that are now available. Just go help. And we do see that we have 3 new commands here. We have the service, session, and the show query command. So let's just run help on the service command. So help. This program's commands are case insensitive, so it is safe to run help and then service like this. So this shows information about the HQK reporting service that is serving this client. So let's check this out. Let's run service. Cool. So this revealed that the version, which can be useful if we're looking for CVEs, but since this is a custom application, I doubt there will be any CVEs for it. And this is the name of the executable. So HQK service. It also shows us the initial query directory, which might be handy later on. All right, let's do help session. So session shows information about the current network session established with the HQK reporting service. All right, let's try running that. So here it gives us a session ID. It's not too interesting, and more information that we saw while running the previous command. Also not too interesting. It does say debug true though, but still not interesting. So help show query is the last command. So this looks very interesting because it shows the contents of the specified database query. Use a list command to view available queries, making note of the ID number next to the query you want to view. Then use the show query command with that ID number. So previously we tried running the run query command. Like we tried doing run query and then 1 right here, and it kept giving us invalid database configuration found. Please contact your system administrator. But this time we can show the contents of the specified database query. So if we can, this means that, hey, we might now have permission to read files on the system. So let's try doing a show query 1. And that's cool. Instead of erroring out, we were able to read the contents of this query. Though this data doesn't look too interesting. Let's try number 2. Similar to number 1, let's try number 3. Number 3 is also similar to number 2. Alright, so now let's try going to the comparisons directory. So set dir comparisons list. So let's do show query 1. Also not too interesting. Okay. So if we recall, we could use this command to traverse directories using the setdir command, but because we didn't have the debug password like before, we could only list the names of the files and not particularly list the contents. But we might have an arbitrary file read, which could be very handy. So let's do set dir ... list. Let's go up another directory. So set dir ... list. And here we see a few more interesting things like HQK config.xml. Config files are always good to look at because they generally hold like passwords or credentials for which the application is configured with. So let's try that. Show query 3. And it looks like we were able to read it. So this means that we do have arbitrary file read, which is great because we can probably read any file on the system, which is super handy. We already have this password here. So if we check the LDAP directory right here, if we recall, if we go back to our SMB share and some of the files that we downloaded as the c.smith user, we found this file called hqk ldap.exe, which we still need to look at. It's still on our to-do list. And anything that has to do with HQK and LDAP, hey, definitely worth taking a look at. So from there, we're gonna set dir to LDAP, because we're gonna want to go into that directory, do a list, and hey, there's the executable file that we have. But there's also its config file. So let's make sure to dump those contents. So let's go show query 2. Excellent. We have managed to dump the administrator's password. Again, this is probably encrypted because it is base64 encoded and it looks similar to c.smith's, but we will take this. We'll call it ldap.conf and we'll put it in our loot. So go here, we're in loot, and we'll just call this ldap.conf. Excellent. So, hey, we might have admin. Before we start reverse engineering that app, let's verify whether or not this password is encrypted. Let's copy that. Let's echo it. Add the -n flag to remove any new lines. Base64 decode. And xxd so that we can perform a hex dump. So this way we can dump even unprintable characters. And looks like about half of this password is unprintable characters, so yes, it is definitely encrypted. Which means we will have to go reverse engineer this hqk ldap.exe file. So I will do that in the next episode.